Warning: the following video contains major spoilers for a 20-year-old, Japanese-only PlayStation 1 game. If you had not played Tearing Saga, I strongly recommend that you watch the video anyway, so I can still get views and likes, because I value my videos doing well over your enjoyment of a piece of media. This is normally the part where I say I'm joking, but no. Eat shit and die. Say, when you're playing a JRPG, do you ever think to yourself, golly, this main character sure is nice and all, but would it be a lot cooler if he was a complete dick? Well, you're in luck, because Holmes from Tearing Saga is just the man for you. He's the best lord no one has ever seen, coming in with the right blend of rude comments and heroic deeds to create a man who's just tolerable enough to like. Holmes separates himself from the norm by making you want to strangle him. So let's dive right into the story of Tearing Saga and see what makes the Pirate Lord of Granada such a good lead character. Holmes' introduction is actually right at the start of the game, as the opening scene depicts the main Lord Runin on Holmes' ship, the Sea Lion, and he's staring off into the distance. Runin is currently mulling over the fact that he was just kicked out of his home by an evil empire. You know, RPG main character things. And if it's right that they, and Holmes, only lived due to the sacrifices of others. In particular, Holmes' father, the admiral and leader of Granada, was believed to have died to get them to safety. And while Holmes does see it as kinda pathetic that young men like he and Runin had to be saved by, as he puts it, senior citizens, he assures Runin that there's no issue with that. The people that died for them did so because it was for a cause they believed in. So all they can do now is move forward and make sure they make it back to their home to see their people again. Besides, Holmes remarks that there's a solid chance his father is still alive anyway, as Holmes calls his old man, quote, a tenacious little rat, and seems sure that they'll meet again. Holmes then goes into what he's going to do now that he's escaped. He's gonna be a treasure hunter, exploring all kinds of mystical places, all for the adventure and riches that come with it. He extends an invitation for Runin to join his crew, though he knows that Runin has a war to fight and a country to reclaim. So Holmes drops Runin off at the island nation of Welt, as Runin is going in there to try and get some allies to take his home back. Concerned for his safety, Holmes gives Runin one of his men, Garo, and departs for a pirate base on the island to the north, with the intent of kicking out the pirates there and making the island of Isla his secret base, in a sense. This introduction sets up Holmes excellently. He's shown to be a loyal and kind friend, reassuring Runin in his time of doubt. There's also some of the venom he has for his father. Calling him a rat is a very not nice thing to say, and that relationship gets expanded on later. And it sets up his love of treasure hunting, which is also something that drives the story forward on his route. It's a solid introduction that tells us pretty much everything we need to know about Holmes' character. And then he vanishes for like 8 chapters. See, while Holmes and Runin are both the lords of the game, Runin is definitely the main character. Holmes is kind of like the B-plot of a sitcom episode, at least until the last third-ish of the game, where their stories directly interlap. So the game has Runin do Runin things, and then Holmes does Holmes things, and then back to Runin, etc, etc. So Holmes takes a backseat for the start of the game, while Runin goes on to Welt and casually beats the shit out of a bunch of people, fighting a war that he kinda just walked into. The next time the player sees Holmes, he's kicked out the pirates of Isla and their leader Mershen, and he has claimed the island as his own. There, he sees one of the pirates' captives, a young woman named Katri, and frees her, though she's visually scared of him due to the fact that, well, he's a pirate. Holmes is very abrasive to her, as he's frustrated that she doesn't immediately trust his word, even though she has a very obvious and fair reason not to, and it isn't until one of his crewmates Zeno deploys the legendary tactic of talking nice that she finally starts to calm down. This scene is the start of Holmes trying to be helpful, but going about it like a complete ass, something he mostly does with Katri throughout the game, though it's not just her. Katri's story is very relevant to Holmes's as the story goes on, so I'll try to explain her tale in brief. Katri was a princess of the nation of Salia, and she was taken away from her family many years prior to the game's start. She has no idea about her birth parents or her birthright, and she was raised by a traveling bishop named Law, who was by her side as her only companion for as long as she can remember. When Katri was taken away by Marvin's pirates, Law was believed to have been slain by them as she was captured, so now she's super sad because her foster dad is foster dead. Oh, and one teeny tiny detail, she can turn into an ancient dragon because of her bloodline, and she will go absolutely berserk if she doesn't have a fancy bracelet with her to control it. And if anyone gets that bracelet, they can control Katri and make her kill things as a dragon against her will. You know, teenage girl things. While exploring the island, Katri finds a funny-looking staff she believes to be the Staff of Morse. This game's version of the dead reviving Alms staff, or Valkyrie staff if you draw inclined. Holmes says it's more likely than not a zombie staff that will summon a horde of zombies and eat them all alive, and he also remarks that the legendary Staff of Morse would be wasted on, quote, a random old geezer. Holmes' incredibly dickish comment sends Katri away in a crying fit, and she tries desperately to use the staff to bring back her foster father. But lo and behold, Holmes was completely correct. It was a zombie staff, and Katri does almost get everyone killed. So as rude as he was, Holmes was right, leading to a huge undead infestation that Katri's conveniently timed dragon awakening makes not that big a deal. Katri is understandably shaken up by the whole I just turned into a dragon and killed the shit out of zombies thing, and Holmes actually shows a good moment here. He reassures her that he will always be there to protect her, actually showing that he is kind, behind all of his layers of dicketry and abrasiveness. This is something that Holmes does frequently. He'll talk a big game of overconfidence and rudeness, but he always does what's right, and the kind thing to do. And anyone who interacts with him normally brings up the discrepancy between what he says and does, much to his chagrin. So if you're a fan of the, quote, asshole with the heart of gold trope, Holmes will be just the man for you. With Katri now in tow, Holmes moves through Welt himself to fight some bandits and do general Holmes things. And there, he has a conversation with his right-hand man, Sheegan. They get into a talk about their parents, with Sheegan remarking that his parents were both members of the crazed Satan cult called Gerxel, cause you can't have a JRPG without a Satan cult in there. And Holmes remarks that that kind of thing doesn't matter, saying, quote, even if your parents are ogres or zombies, it wouldn't matter in the least. You're you. Parents can eat shit. This is probably his most famous line, and is a good point told in a very Holmes way to do so. And the line also links back to his animosity towards his father, which Holmes expresses some more in this scene, to the point that his mother abandoned him when he was about 3, and he doesn't blame her for it. He thinks his dad was that bad. Anyways, as Holmes is killing off bandits and pirates, he comes across Melvin's pirates again, and they're still alive after being kicked out of Isla, and they've gone back to kidnapping, this time a young woman named Renee. Renee's foster brother Atram is trying to fight on his own to save her, and at Katri's insistence, Holmes joins the fight and helps Atram by sailing out to attack Michigan at sea. Unfortunately, Holmes, doesn't save Renee successfully, and she's dumped out overboard and lost at sea. But he decides to help Atram by going on a quest for the Daggeron, a magic orb that revives the dead. Holmes says he's just in it for the adventure of it, as it's guarded by many monsters and even an ancient magic dragon, but it's clear he's doing that thing where he wants to be kind, but he's just deflecting to actually admitting that he's doing it. Before we move on, I want to show a scene where he recruits Krishna, one of Mario's pirates, because it's a very funny scene. Hey, thanks for helping out earlier. Too bad things didn't work out with Renee. So where are you going from here? Nowhere in particular. You all seem like a lively bunch. Do you have room for one more? Of course we do. You've already shown that you can take care of yourself, so you're good in my book. Plus, it'll be a nice change of pace to have a girl on board who's not a whiny brat. Right, Sheegan? I don't know, Holmes. This broad's a trained killer and a thief. I have a hard time believing she's just coming along for fun. What a rude man. Well, if you're that worried, you can just keep an eye on me, right? Nah, that's too much effort. Besides, this way I get to tell Holmes I told you so, which is always fun. Welcome aboard! Good to know my first mate has the utmost confidence in my judgment. I'm bringing this scene up because it's not enough to just say what Holmes does, it's how he does what he does that makes him charming, so you gotta bring up a funny scene here and there. Oh, and if you were wondering, yes, Sheegan was completely correct, Krishna 100% stabs him in the back. On the way to get the magical revive orb, Holmes accidentally stumbles upon a civil war. You know, as you do when traversing the countryside. After he saves a random passerby from a thug, she begs Holmes to help save her town of Akis, a city in Salia, as it's being overtaken by bandits and a few deserted soldiers. Holmes agrees to lay down some grade A ass-whooping, and after that, he goes farther north to the city of Blood, and he realizes that a local governor, Jesus, yes, I know his name is Lionheart, but fucking look at him, he's Jesus, has been fighting back the forces of the douchebag Viceroy Ahab, who took over Salia through devious means, and Holmes helped him out by liberating Akis. Jesus wants to team up with Runin to fight back against Ahab's forces and take back Salia, but if he did so, Blood would be left defenseless from any invaders. Holmes agrees to defend the city while Jesus is away, and so we leave Holmes aside for a little bit, so Runin can go back to doing Runin things. And while Runin's doing Runin things, I want to discuss something that, to me, is the lone weakness to Holmes' character, his romance with Katri. Now, the concept isn't uncommon. Holmes is outwardly mean and petty, but deep down is kind and righteous. Katri is a woman who sees the good in everyone, so she knows Holmes is a good man and tries to be kind to him. And he's embarrassed by the genuine affection and defaults to mean comments whenever she's nice to him. And of course, there's the eventual moment where Holmes admits his true feelings, shows her he really does care, blah blah blah, etc, etc. You know the idea. But there's an issue to me. Katri doesn't respond to Holmes being mean to her in a way that's fun to watch. She usually just gets really upset and then gets really angry or really sad. That's not very enjoyable. Holmes, what's this staff? Nice find. That's a Hamern staff. Skilled clerics can use them to repair almost anything. I say skilled clerics, though, because they're notoriously difficult to use. I doubt you'd be able to. I wonder. Well, I'll try my best. I want to be helpful to you all. You don't need to push yourself. You've been doing great. Holmes, do you really mean that? Of course not. I was joking. Now make yourself useful for a change and go help out the others. Holmes! Why are you always so mean? When Holmes tries to be curt to the likes of Sheegan, Runin, or Sasha, they rib him back, understanding not to take what he says seriously. But Katri doesn't do that. She replies to Holmes' words at face value. So it really looks like an 8-year-old boy expressing his feelings by pulling a girl's hair. It's not that there's really malicious intent, but it's not something you want to watch or something that should be encouraged. Now I will say that, once you finally meet Holmes' father, you understand completely why he struggles to be genuine with his feelings, but that doesn't make it any less uncomfortable to watch IMO. Now, it's not all bad. What makes it bearable is how Holmes acts towards Katri when she isn't around. After Runin wraps things up, Lionheart returns to Holmes and the two of them plan to take back Salia, and Holmes agrees to do so on one condition. Lionheart takes the throne as the next king. This request is significant because by bloodline, Katri should become the next queen, since as I said earlier, she is the long-lost princess of Salia. But she's a girl raised away from everything, with no idea how to rule. Adding on to the fact that she's a sensitive person who gets flustered easily, suddenly inheriting the kingdom is not going to make her happy. If anything, she would spend the rest of her life being used as a political tool by government officials. Lionheart does actually hold some claim to the throne, because he's actually Katri's uncle. His sister is the Queen of Salia and her mother. Under normal circumstances, though, Lionheart would not be next in line for the throne, but Holmes pushes for him to become king, to make sure Katri can live her life happily as a normal girl. This scene does show Holmes cares about Katri more than he lets on to her, and shows that he does think about what's good for her. I just wish he would show Katri that kind of kindness. After taking back Salia, Katri decides to stay there with her birth parents and nurse them to health, while Holmes goes back to take his home of Granada back from the Empire, and use that fancy orb while he's at it. And while he leaves, Katri gives him her bracelet. You know, the one that controls her dragon powers and whoever has it can control her against her will. This is obviously a huge deal. Katri quite literally describes it as her giving Holmes her heart, and though Holmes is concerned that doing so will leave her defenseless and unable to dragon up, she says that she's confident Holmes will save her if something ever happens. Which, you know, nothing's gonna happen. Katri is definitely fine. Not in danger at all. This scene helps show that Katri does care about Holmes too, despite how mad she can get at him. So we do at least get some scenes showing that the affection between them is mutual, even if only one of them is in control of their emotions enough to display that affection to the other. After leaving Katri, Holmes' next few maps don't really have any character moments for him. It's more so time for a huge exposition dump that takes up pretty much the entire trip to Granada. Once he takes back Granada, though, he gets put into a foul mood. He's seen the amount of death and destruction his home has faced, and just wonders what the point of it all is. So many people died, so many people will still die, and thinking about all that carnage, it makes Holmes wonder if he's really even any better than an Empire soldier. Sheegan tries to reassure him, telling him that Holmes didn't start the war and nor does Holmes choose to keep it going, but that doesn't stop his doubts from lingering. Holmes having a moment of doubt in his convictions helps humanize him. He's not Doomslayer, he can't just kill a bunch of things with no remorse whatsoever, and it shows he's empathetic enough to understand the weight of his actions. While in Granada, Holmes reunites with his father, who, surprise, is still alive, and it's here that we learn why Holmes is the way that he is. Because Holmes' father, Vols, is a complete dick, being very mean and abrasive to Holmes and insulting his life choices, telling him he needs to learn what real work is. Because, you know, fighting in civil wars and freeing your goddamn city is just too easy and lackadaisical. And to top it all off, Vols is a big womanizer. When he's introduced, he's getting fed by and getting massages from some pretty unnamed lady, and Holmes remarks that Vols has dozens of women all over the continent. Holmes' speculations reveal that he could have hundreds of half-siblings out there, thanks to his father being unable to keep it in his pants. But, in spite of all of that, Vols was actually leading a sort of underground railroad, risking his life to rescue people in the Granada city and helping them flee to a safer place, all the while staying there and biding his time until he was saved. So he was actively helping people while he was injured. So Vols is a crude man with no understanding of tact, and he treats women questionably, but at his core he's a good man who's willing to make sacrifices to protect the weak? Good golly! Who does that possibly remind you of? Holmes' grudge against his dad is not unfounded. The terrible attitude and the womanizing are legitimate concerns, but it's also because Holmes is a near mirror image of his father. Holmes growing up with Vols as his only role model definitely fucked with his behavior, and it perfectly explains most of Holmes' flaws. A shitty parenting leads to a shitty kid. It makes Holmes empathetic. Plenty of people have had poor parents, and they can relate to Holmes' issues with his father. It also makes us appreciate Holmes' attitude much more. Sure, he might be a little mean to Katri, but at least he isn't knocking women up and then blocking their number. Vols manages to convince Holmes to don the garb of the Admiral of Granada, and in doing so, gives him a promotion, and then encourages him to give a speech to the people. I'm gonna rip this scene right from my own Let's Play of TRS, both as a clever plug for you to watch it, and because I'm lazy and I'm just gonna use my own footage to make my point. What, you want me to go give a speech from the balcony like a nobleman? I'm not doing that crap. Holmes, you are a nobleman. Come on, what's wrong with a little speech? Just use your own words. Fine, whatever. Since you insist, Shigen. And that's the long and short of it. I'm sure you've had a rough time, but, well, so have we. If you want to complain to someone, go find my old man and whine at him. I've got important things to do. Okay, he's winning them over with humor. Alright. We drove out the Imperial troops, so feel free to do whatever you want. Throw some parties, I don't care. I love it. I'm not used to talking so much. It's so exhausting. That was the worst speech I'd ever heard. Once Holmes is told to become Lord of Granada, he of course bucks that responsibility and goes off on his own adventure to finally use the Dacron. And for this final chunk of the game, Holmes kinda takes a backseat. There's a whole lot of lore dumps, Runen doing Runen things, a huge insight on Prince Senet and other side characters, but Holmes' individual story is pretty much done. The main scene of note is when Runen is also having doubts about whether or not what he's doing is right, and Holmes reassures him and urges Runen to have faith in himself, mirroring Shigen's own encouragement. It's a scene that helps really show Runen and Holmes' chemistry. Moments like these remind us that they are best friends, and despite their differences, they're as close as brothers. While meeting with Runen, Holmes receives word that Katri gets kidnapped, which, wow, when she said she was going to be okay, I can't believe she wasn't actually okay. And Holmes goes off to save her. But the stuff with Holmes is mostly some more banter between he and Shigen, and a bunch of exposition. The only scene of note is that on the way, there's a montage of Katri's scenes that Holmes thinks about, and he has a sort of, oh fuck, I was in love with the woman I was really mean to moment, which, the player and also every character in the game other than Holmes figured out ages ago. All the interesting stuff happens with Runen. It's kind of like the game remembered Runen was the main character at the end of the game, which is fine. Holmes' story just becoming part of Runen's is much better for the plot. It just sucks if you happen to be doing the character analysis on Holmes and you need things to talk about. So I have to jump to the epilogue of the game for the last bit of Holmes stuff to talk about. And remember how I said Holmes was like, I probably got dozens of unknown half-siblings. Well, as it turns out, he was traveling with one of them, a Trom, the dude from way back in the beginning of his route. In the epilogue, he tells a Trom to follow Shigen back to Granada, and says that it will, quote, make sense once he gets there. Holmes' intention is to dump off the responsibility of ruling Granada to a Trom, so he can go fuck off on adventures and treasure hunts and all the fun stuff he wants to do. It is remarkably dickish, and it leads to another fun bit of banter with Shigen. Oh, you crafty devil. You're going to use him to get out of having to deal with Granada, aren't you? Gonna push everything on a Trom, huh? Well, not everything. I'll be keeping the sea lion. I'm sure a Trom will be happy to learn about his heritage anyway. Last time you said he'd probably get depressed and kill himself. Do you just make these up as you go along? It's technically a good thing to do because a Trom did want to learn of his heritage, and a Trom technically has just as much responsibility to lead Granada as Holmes does, but Holmes is definitely doing a good thing for an evil reason. But it's not enough of an evil thing that I think it's okay. Once Holmes gets back to Salia, it's time for him to part ways with Katri for good, and her parents are overjoyed with her safe return, oblivious to the fact that she died and had to get revived by God. It's a long story, not really that important. Holmes expects some kind of tear-filled farewell, but instead Katri stands proud, saying that she's grown up a lot and doesn't need him and his lousy pirates around anymore. Katri's harsh words are actually a plan hatched by Shigen to get Holmes to confess his love. Basically, since Holmes struggles with genuine emotion, Shigen thought that provoking him into being honest would work more than kindly asking him to be honest. Unfortunately, it doesn't work at all, and Holmes kinda just leaves really confused, because not even Shigen can fully predict how hard-headed Holmes is. This leads into the honestly very lovely ending of the game. Holmes manages to convince Runin to join him on his trip around the world, like he asked in the beginning of the game. Runin agrees, and thanks to Shigen, Katri is coming along too, and Holmes and Katri have a genuine heart-to-heart at the very end that finally wraps up their romance. I still don't think it's that great, but it's definitely something that gets much better the longer the game goes on. I just think it takes a little too long to start getting good. But the end of the game has the three main romances, Katri and Holmes, Runin and Entei, and Shigen and either his childhood friend, newfound love, or stepsister. Oh, god damn it. Departing on a new adventure, with the excitement of a new day and a new world over the horizon. It's honestly a very touching ending, not just for Holmes, but for all of Tear Ring Saga. I really liked it. At the end of the day, Holmes doesn't really break any new ground. I mean, he's far from the first or last JRPG main character who's kind of a dick, but I rank Holmes so highly because of how well he does what he does. He's very entertaining, his arcs are effective to make him likable, and he's a very good partner to the real main character, Runin. I strongly encourage you to play Tear Ring Saga yourself. He's the kind of character who can't really be fully enjoyed by an analysis video. You have to go and see all of his scenes in-game to really appreciate him. Here's to Holmes, one of my favorite lords, and a guy I would 100% not be able to stand if I ever saw him in real life. Wow, $3. If only there was some kind of affordable monthly plan that I could use these $3 on. Well, wouldn't you know it? You're in luck, because I have a Patreon that just so happens to cost $3 minimum. That's right, for as little as $3 a month, you can get access to the FEMS Paint Patreon, where you can get sneak peek panels before a major video launches, and you can get your name read aloud in major videos. And for $7 a month, you can get access to polls to decide future videos. Right now, it's a battle for Tellius, and who's gonna win? I don't know, probably not Taronio. I've been trying to get him to win for like several months, and he never even gets a fucking vote! My patrons include the likes of Andrew Crockett, Atomic X160, Benz Again, Fire Emblem Lord, Follow Pen to the North Star on Twitch, Gallade Knight, Great Riek, Green Brigand, Hell on Heelys, Jespacito 2, Keith and Coleman, Kieran Morin, Lightning Bolt, Memi, Nevrix the Fallen Shield Guy, Ranger Man Sam, Ryan Walter, Shen Lu, Space1255, Steph D, Tato, Anti-Ginger, Brentendo11, Drew Hack, Kazu Foxfire, and Max. Thank you all for your continued support, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for making it to the end of another character analysis video. We've done 50 of these! Holy shit. As always, I would like to thank the Green Brigand for his help, looking over the script and making this long episode just as good as it could be. I would also like to thank my friend Spar for helping out, as he's the biggest Kaga elitist I know. I mean, I love Kaga, but Spar has played Vastaria Saga 2 like 3 times and he can't even read Japanese. If you enjoyed the video, please come to the Discord, which you're seeing panels of right now. Also, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, leave a comment on the video, and just thank you. Thank you for 50 episodes. It's been a great ride, and here's to 50 more. Seriously, thank you. Until next time.
Change the world. My final message.